Good morning. Can you hear me? Well, good morning. Welcome to this live broadcast of the National Assembly, the morning sitting on this day of the 16th of November, the year 2022. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. In the order of business for the members of the National Assembly this morning, there are two motions that are lined up for consideration. There is the motion by the member for Dagoretti South, Honorable John Keria, on the tree planting along the roadsides and road reserves. This particular motion seeks to have the House resolve that the government includes a component of tree planting in all road network designs and also makes it compulsory for road contractors to replace any tree harvested during road construction upon completion of the project. Debate on this motion already kicked off, and this morning session will be a resumption of the debate that was interrupted on Thursday, November 10th, the year 2022. Balance of time is 43 minutes. So this is a motion that is lined up for consideration on the floor of the House this morning by the members of the National Assembly. The motion by Kwanza MP Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi on publishing of the rules and regulations for private land use and management in regard to the minimum and maximum land holdings in Kenya is also lined up for consideration in the order of business this morning for the members of the National Assembly. And the member or this House will be resolving that the government enforces compliance of Article 68C1 of the Constitution and the National Land Policy, Sessional Paper number 3 of 2009 on maximum and minimum land holdings in Kenya through publishing of the rules and regulations for private land use and management in regard to the minimum and maximum land holdings. That is the second motion that is lined up for consideration in the order of business this morning for the members of the National Assembly on this sitting. The entrance of the National Assembly chambers, Honorable Faram Alim is walking into the chambers. He will be presiding over this morning session. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Kamche Menza. Good morning.
Waheshimiwa na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Tukuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amin. Honorable members, there seems to be a serious challenge with quorum this morning. I direct that the bell be rung for 10 minutes.
Well, the fourth chairperson of committees, Honorable Farah Maalim, has ordered for the quorum bell to be rung for 10 minutes, of course, to allow members who are yet to get into the chambers to be able to make it to the chambers for the morning session. As you can see already at the entrance, Kamukunji, Member of Parliament, is there walking in. So members are expected, of course, to get into the chambers to enable the House commence its business, as is in the standing orders that the House cannot commence its business unless the quorum of the House is achieved. The first quorum bell will be rung for 10 minutes. And if the quorum of the House is achieved before the lapse of the 10 minutes, then the Speaker may call the House to order and commence the business of the day. But if at the lapse of the 10 minutes, there is still no quorum, the Speaker will order for another quorum bell of 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes should be able to allow members to also get into the chamber to enable the House reach its quorum. So currently is a quorum bell at the commencement of the House, 10 minutes, members to be able to get into the chambers. So this morning, the legislative proposal to amend the Constitution under Standing Order 114.7a by the member for Gishugu, Honorable Gishimu Githinji, and member for Matungulu, Honorable Stephen Mule, to make statements on the legislative proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench the National Government Constituencies Development Fund, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, the Senate Oversight Fund, and the Economic Stimulus and Empowerment Fund in the Constitution, is also lined up for debate. Already debate on this particular legislative proposal kicked off, but today's debate will be a resumption of a debate that was interrupted on Tuesday of November 8th, the year 2022. So members who may have not been able to ventilate on this particular legislative proposal by the two members of the National Assembly, then they can get time this morning to be able to air their opinions on this constitutional amendment or rather legislative proposal by the two members. The member for Seme, Honorable James Nyikala, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 225, he will be presenting a petition seeking compensation for Nyanza, Western Kenya caucus of internally displaced person. The member for Seme, Honorable James Nyikala, will be presenting a petition pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 225, seeking compensation for Nyanza, Western Kenya caucus of internally displaced persons. And the member for Mandera South, Honorable Abdul Haro, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42A, subsection 5, he will be asking questions that will be replied before specified committee. This question will be going to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, and the member will be seeking the CS to state whether the Cabinet Secretary could provide the measures that the government has put in place to ensure that residents of Mandera County are able to acquire important government documents, including national identification cards and passports, without undue delays caused by lengthy bureaucratic procedures. The member will again be posing a question to the CS to explain the measures that the government has put in place to address the unwarranted delays in vetting of persons applying for passports in Mandera County. These two questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Honorable Ambokomi Lemba has entered the chambers. As you can see, members are slowly trickling into the chambers. The quorum bell is still underway. It's a 10-minute quorum bell that is on to give time for members who have not yet gotten to the chambers for this morning session to be able to get into the chambers. And once the 10-minute quorum bell lapses, another 5-minute quorum bell will be granted to the members. But of course, if the quorum of the House has not been achieved to enable the House commence its business. This morning, the member for Teso North, Honorable Oku Kaunya, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Labour and Social Protection to explain the circumstances that led to the dismissal of Mr. Gabriel Akimwanari Obasie, holder of identity card that has been returned there from the National Industrial Training Authority on 19th February 2022. Again, whether the Cabinet Secretary could indicate when the officer will be reinstated back to office and paid his salaries, arrears, and other benefits for the period he was out of employment. This is a question that will be asked to the Cabinet Secretary for Labour and Social Protection by the member for Teso North, Honorable Oku Kaunya, and it will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Labour. Also, the member for Malava, Honorable Malulu Injendi, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning to provide, or whether he or she could provide, the list of constituencies that received a share of 4.9 billion Kenya shillings by the National Government Constituency Development Fund through the second supplementary estimates during the 2021-2022 financial year, and further list those that did not receive any funding. Again, the member for Malava will be posing a question to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, whether the Cabinet Secretary could further explain when the 2.9 billion Kenya shillings balance will be disbursed to the remaining constituencies, considering that each constituency was to receive approximately 13 million Kenya shillings to enable the completion of stalled projects. These two questions by the member for Malava to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. If you're just joining this live broadcast, is that currently is a 10-minute quorum bell that is underway.
Proceed and ring the bell for another 5 minutes, an additional 5 minutes.
Quorum bell. Currently, the quorum bell is still underway. The House has not achieved its requisite number at the commencement of the House business. So members still have the opportunity to get into the chambers, of course, to enable the House begin its business this morning. The member for Imenti North, Honorable Abdul Dawood, will also be asking the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning to explain why the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC employees who retire have to wait for over 2 or more years for their pension dues to be paid. This is a question by the member for Imenti North to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. One, seeking to have the Cabinet Secretary explain why Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC employees who retire have to wait for over 2 or more years for their pension dues to be paid. Also, the Cabinet Secretary to further explain why the former KBC employees who received the lump sum amount never received the monthly pension on time. Members are walking in, as you can see on your screen. The quorum bell is to enable the members to walk into the chambers. According to the standing orders, the House cannot start its business or commence business of the House if the House does not have the requisite quorum. So the bell will be on until the House achieves its quorum. At the lapse of 10 minutes, another 5-minute quorum bell will be granted, at which at the lapse of the 5 minutes, if the quorum of the House has not been achieved, then the Speaker shall adjourn the House until the next sitting without question put. So currently is a quorum bell, and this is to allow members to be able to walk into the chambers. Remember, it's a chilly morning. It's a chilly morning, and the weather is a bit cold out there. But at the same time, House business has to go on. So the quorum bell will be on until the House achieves its requisite number, or if the Speaker will adjourn the House until the next sitting. On the questions to be asked by the Imenti North Member of Parliament, Honorable Abdul Dawood, to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. The third question will be, could the Cabinet Secretary expedite payment of monthly pension dues to an officer that is a former KBC employee who is yet to receive his pension dues from August 2022 to date? And the last question that this member will be posing to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning is on what measures the ministry is putting in place.
Honorable members, you can see we have a challenge with quorum. Honorable members, the time being 9:51 a.m. This House stands adjourned until Wednesday, the 16th of November 2022 at 2:30 p.m.
Well, the fourth chairperson of committees, Honorable Farah Alim, who was the temporary speaker for this morning sitting at the National Assembly chambers, has just adjourned the sitting. Of course, owing to the fact that the House has failed to achieve the requisite quorum at the commencement of the House business, And this is according to the standing orders that when the House does not achieve its quorum at the commencement of the House business, and of course at the lapse of the 10-minute quorum bell and yet another 5-minute quorum bell, then the Speaker shall adjourn the House until the next sitting. So as you can see on your screen is that members are walking out of the chambers after the Speaker adjourned the House owing to the lack of quorum for the House. This is until this afternoon's sitting as directed by the Speaker. So members will be coming back to the chambers in the afternoon for the afternoon session, but as it is now, members are walking out, of course, following the adjournment of this morning sitting. This has been a live broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I will now hand you over back to the Broadcasting House for normal programming. See you later in the afternoon. Good morning. My name is Kamche Menza.